If you're listening to this, there's a good chance you are somewhere between packing cubes and lesson plans. You might be planning a trip with your kids already on the road or sitting at home with 10 tabs open, wondering if this whole traveling while homeschooling thing is actually kind to you and to your children. Well, this episode is for you. Not the imagined version of you who has bottomless patience, color coded itineraries, and children who never melt down in an airport security line. The real you. The you who wants travel to be both education and exhale. The you who is trying to build a life where your children learn from the world, but you are not constantly running on fumes. Around here, we think of travel as lived education wrapped in emotional luxury, alongside some not so subtle luxury. Not luxury in the diamond status, always upgraded sense. Luxury as time, as space, as a day that has room for one beautiful thing and a proper rest, alongside some upgrades that embrace this comfort and ease. So today, I want to offer you 10 gentle truths every traveling homeschool mom needs to hear. Not as a checklist and not as a lecture, just as quiet, steady reminders you can carry with you the next time you start to wonder, is this really worth it? Or am I quietly failing at both travel and school? Let's start with the most important one. You're not failing at vacation. So many mothers arrive in a beautiful place already carrying a private report card. Did we book enough activities? Did we choose the right destination? Is everyone having the amount of fun this price tag seems to require? But when you travel while homeschooling, you're not just taking a vacation. You are relocating your life to a different backdrop. Your child doesn't stop being themselves because there's a beach outside the window. You don't stop being human because there's a cathedral down the street. Some days will feel radiant. The conversation will flow, the timing will line up, and you'll think, this is why we chose this. Other days will feel like you accidentally packed your regular problems inside your carry-on. Neither of those days means you're failing at vacation. They just mean you've brought your whole life with you, and that was always the point. Instead of asking, is this how a perfect family would do it? Try, does this day feel kind to the actual humans we are? Because you're not here to pass an invisible vacation exam. You're actually here to live. Gentle truth number 2. Rest is not something you steal from school. Rest is part of the education. There is a fear that if the day is not full of checkable learning moments, you've somehow wasted it. No museum, no worksheet, just a slow morning, maybe a long nap, maybe a quiet hour, where everyone scatters to their own corners of the hotel suite or the apartment. Here's what I've noticed. Children process experiences in the spaces in between. The lesson isn't only happening while you are on the tour or watching the performance. The lesson happens later when they replay it in their minds, ask follow-up questions at breakfast or at dinner, fold it into their pretend play, or draw it without prompting. Rest is what allows all of that to settle. Without it, even the most extraordinary experiences blur into noise. So, when you choose a calm morning over a rushed extra site, you're not skipping school. You're giving their mind and nervous system the space to keep what matters. And that is one of the most luxurious gifts you can actually offer. Now, on to gentle truth number 3. Simpler plans are not less than. They're often safer and kinder. There's this quiet pressure, especially in the curated world of travel media, to pack every moment with the extraordinary. 3 museums in one day, a sunrise, hot air balloon, the must see list that reads like an endurance event. And I understand the impulse. When you've invested time, money, and energy to bring your family somewhere beautiful, it can feel almost irresponsible not to make the most of it. But here's what I've learned through actually living this: the most luxurious feeling isn't seeing more, it's seeing deeply and enjoying the moment, allowing yourself to sit in something. Like I mentioned before, time is something that everyone doesn't have. So when you have it, you really need to appreciate it. One museum, one carefully chosen private guide who speaks gently and leaves room for questions. One unhurried morning where your little ones can sit in a quiet courtyard and simply notice the light changing on an old stone wall. That isn't missing out. That is emotional luxury. Choosing presence over performance, depth over density. When I plan, I ask myself one question: would this feel luxurious if it were the only thing we did today? And when I say luxurious, am I embracing ease? Is my child having a moment to sit and actually take in the experience that she's encountering? If this answer is yes, if this one experience has enough texture, enough wonder, enough room for us to simply be, then it stays. Everything else becomes optional, a gentle maybe instead of an obligation. This is also why I gravitate towards routes where the journey itself is an experience. I don't necessarily do trains, but maybe a nice slow train through the Swiss Alps where you can read and draw or simply gaze out the window could be an amazing experience. Or a ferry crossing at golden hour with nothing to do but feel the breeze and watch the shoreline. A coastal drive where you allow space to stop whenever something quietly beautiful catches your eye. The luxury isn't in the quantity of sights, it's the quality of attention. And that kind of attention is only possible when you give yourself and your little one the gift of slack in the system. And once you let go of that more and more and more pressure, something shifts in how you think about schoolwork too, which brings us to the next gentle truth. Gentle truth number 4: fun is not off school. People sometimes ask me, so when is your little one actually off school? Like, when is she just having fun? And my answer is always the same. She's having fun all the time and she's learning all the time. Both can exist simultaneously. Because here's how I think about it: my little one is never off school because school for us isn't a place we go, it's the way we move through the world. I think of our afternoon in a small chocolate workshop in Norway. Not the glossy tourist factory version, but the kind of place where the owner still talks about how her grandmother taught her to temper chocolate by hand and she wants to pass that story on. My little one actually spent nearly 2 hours there learning the origin from cacao to where cocoa actually comes from, watching beans become silk, hearing about what sustainable sourcing means for real families who grow those beans. And then there was the part where you could never write into a curriculum plan. She met another child there, a young boy who was about her age. They didn't have to say much, but they shared tools. They shared shy smiles. They compared their wobbly chocolate shapes and somehow understood each other perfectly. From the outside, it just looked like two children having fun. But inside, that fun was cultural exchange, fine motor skills, science, maybe geography, and a quiet confidence that the world is knowable. And then there was the quick lunch. I know in English it sounds like quick lunch, but it is actually the name of the very Norwegian chocolate bar that my little one absolutely fell in love with that day. And it kind of resembles a Kit Kat. It's not pretending to be rare or exclusive. It's simple, familiar, something local families tuck into their bags before they head out into the snow. That's what I love about it. It mirrors the kind of learning I want for her: grounded, honest, deeply rooted in the place we're standing. So, no, that afternoon in the chocolate workshop wasn't time off school for my little one. It was school. It just happened to smell like cocoa and feel like pure ease. When I look back on that day, what I remember most is not the quick lunch versus Kit Kat debate. I remember how unhurried it all felt: the space, the time, the exclusivity, the way every single one of her questions was treated as welcome. That to me is emotional luxury. Learning that has room to breathe instead of being squeezed into the leftover corners of real life. And if that reframes what counts as learning for you, the next gentle truth might take even more pressure off. Gentle truth number 5: multi generational social skills are advanced, not missing. When you slowly travel with your child, they don't just learn how to talk to one narrow slice of the population. They learn how to move comfortably, confidently between ages, accents, and expectations. I thought about a flight we took where my little one ended up chatting with the pilots. Trust me, this wasn't a staged moment. We weren't trying to collect an experience. It was a quiet route. The crew had a little breathing room and they noticed this calm, curious child as she looked out the window instead of at a tablet. One of the pilots invited her to peek into the cockpit while we were still on the ground. And they showed her the controls, talked about how far we'd be going, and asked if she had any questions. Well, of course she had questions. She asked the thoughtful, practical questions, the kind you ask when you're used to being a part of the logistics of family life, not just entertained around the edges of it. From the outside, it might have looked like a cute moment, and trust me, it was. I did have my camera. But from the inside, it was a masterclass in how to greet adults confidently, how to listen, how to ask follow-up questions, how to read the room, and sense when it's time to say thank you and step back. We are still working on the latter. That's not a consolation prize for missing a classroom. That's advanced socialization, in my opinion. It's knowing how to be at ease with grandparents and gate agents, tour guides and taxi drivers, host families, and hotel staff. If you want to lean into that, an emotional luxury upgrade might be seeking out experiences where your child is naturally around different generations. A gently paced private tour with a guide who loves having children along. A long lunch where your host tells stories from their own childhood, or simply the daily ritual of calling a loved one from wherever you are in the world. As you know, that is something that my daughter does with my aunt. You are not shortchanging them. You're actually giving them a different kind of fluency. The ability to walk into a room full of people of any age and feel like they belong there. And once you see that, it becomes a lot easier to release some of those other shoulds you might be carrying about this lifestyle. Gentle truth number 6: good enough curriculum is enough on the road. If you're anything like me, you've carried a quiet anxiety around the curriculum. Am I covering enough? Will I have to make up time? What if someone asks what we use and I don't have a polished answer? Here's what I've come to realize after watching my little one learn through the world instead of just through a workbook. You are not the curriculum. You're actually the curator. Your role isn't to recreate a classroom in every city you visit. Your role is to notice what is alive and available in this particular place and to gently invite your child into that richness. In Rome, the Colosseum becomes your history lesson, not as a paragraph on a page, but as a structure that smells of dust and sun, where you can trace your fingertips alongside stone worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. In Kyoto, it could be a garden at dusk, that tender awareness of beauty that won't last, not as a definition to memorize, but as a feeling, as the last cherry blossom petals fall into the water. That is not a compromise. That is education elevated. Does she know every date in the textbook? She might because she has really great memory, but that's not the point of me saying that. Instead, she would understand how a 2,000-year-old structure still shapes a modern city, how design can teach patience, how a chef's choices reflect culture and climate and ethics. Yes, she knows those things because she's lived them. For us, the curriculum on the road is really just 3 quiet questions. What is the place known for? In its own eyes, not just the guidebooks. What can my child touch, taste, hear, or experience here that she couldn't in our everyday life? And what questions is this experience raising that we can follow up on later in a book or a documentary or even a conversation? We don't try to script every lesson. We plan the conditions for learning, the space, the time, the access, and then allow the details to unfold. From the outside, that might look a little unstructured, but from the inside, it feels like trust. Trust that the world is rich enough to teach her what she needs. Trust that you are attentive enough to notice when it's happening. And once you begin to trust both the experience and yourself, the entire journey starts to feel lighter and far more sustainable. Gentle truth number 7. Feeling overwhelmed doesn't mean you choose wrong. There will be days when the logistics pile up, a delayed flight, a lost reservation, a child who suddenly decides they don't like anything that was carefully planned. In those moments, it's so easy to leap straight to, maybe we're not cut out for this, or maybe this was a mistake. But overwhelm is often just your nervous system's way of asking for a reset, not a verdict of your entire lifestyle. Sometimes the gentlest move is as simple as lowering the bar for the day. One non-negotiable: everyone is fine.